get here? How did we find ourselves in this cage? In recent years, social awareness towards systemic racism has become a prevalent topic. It is everywhere. Our government, our communities, and even our schools are all sources of systemic racism. By reason of current events, a motion toward diversity and inclusion in public spaces has been cultivated. One school that illustrates the trajectory of diverse and inclusive public universities is Illinois State University. Located in Normal, Illinois, Illinois State University was founded in 1857. Initially, it was built strictly on higher learning for educators. Gradually, the school began to welcome more bodies of knowledge, converting itself into a public university. It became a public forum for everyone. Simultaneously, as African Americans saw integration into America, they were welcomed into Illinois State University's campus life. Currently, African Americans make up over 8% of the school's population. They stand out as some of the university's most proud and vocal members.
I transferred to ISU unexpectedly. I had originally attended an HBCU in Louisiana, in Grambling, Louisiana.
Well, I transferred here to Illinois State University my sophomore year. And when I first transferred here, I thought it was great. You know, I was young and naive, I came from an HBCU, so a historically black college. And I was amazed at how many, Black students, came here. And so I thought at first we were very, diverse and inclusive. But then as the years went on, I started to see there's not many opportunities. There's not many teachers that look like me, so it kind of changed my mind on things when it comes to that.
Having a professor at HBCU is like having an aunt or an uncle. They care about you. They reach out to you. If you don't submit an assignment, they notice and they say, hey, what can I do to help you? It's not always just like you automatically get an F. They're reaching out like they're connected to you, like real family.
It was really fun to see more people like me because I grew up in an area where I went to not all white, but it was predominantly white. So I got to see a little bit more of my culture and that was fun. And then coming here to Illinois State, I saw a little bit of that aspect, but not as much. We have one room in the Bone Student Center, the diversity advocacy room. But other than that, I didn't really see too much of my culture and within the school.
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge and recognize that some of these same issues do exist on some of our predominantly Black campuses. One of the nuances, though, is that you do have typically people of color who are in those power positions and things of that nature. One of the challenges is that we have to make sure that we're in our roles, regardless of whether it's a predominantly Black campus, a predominantly white campus, and so forth. Can't forget where we're from, right? You can't forget that structures, right, play into what can be institutionalized racism, okay? And we have to make sure that these structures don't act to the detriment of the student experience. And that can happen anywhere.
At an HBCU, you only see people who look like you. But when you go to a predominantly white institution, you get to see different cultures. So that would be the biggest difference, I would say, is just learning about different cultures. I know when I was at Grambling, I always saw, Black people. But then when I got here, I met Latinx people. I met, other cultures. And I never had a conversation with people, who didn't look like me. So coming here, I did get more exposed to the knowledge of other cultures and other ethnicities.
Barring the integration of Black students into the university, Illinois State University has still had its issues. In the 1920s, Blacks and whites had segregated homecoming events. As time went on, ISU saw civil unrest and a few race-related incidents on campus. Currently, those issues still persist.
Black homecoming got canceled last minute. They didn't really say too much about it, but people felt like they should have probably said stuff earlier if there was practices happening or if the gyms or the auditoriums or whatever was being occupied. I do feel like they probably should have said that beforehand instead of waiting till last minute to say that there was no space available for the homecoming.
we felt like we didn't matter. We felt like our voices weren't heard. We felt like we were only here just to look for the school to look good. You know, we felt like we weren't accepted. We were like, why? Like, why us? Like, why can't we have any events and just have fun, gather? This is like the only time we can really get together as, you know, a community, and it just fell through. So we were just like, why? Like, why us, you know?
I just see pain in my community. A lot of us feel discouraged as if, you know, we don't really have a voice, and we plead to the administration to make changes, and it's like they listen, but they don't execute.
We're accepted, but we're not included in things, you know, and it makes me feel upset because it's like I'm paying all this money to come here, and when I get here, there's nothing for us to do, you know, so we have to make our own events, we have to make our own student organizations, and it sucks because these things should already be in place when you claim diversity.
It's like you can hear all of the great messages from President Dietz and from other, you know, high officials within the university. However, I don't want to hear, you know, what they have to say. I want to see the changes. So, and I feel like that's what a lot of Black students feel like right now. It's just like we're tired of hearing that things are going to be better, or we're making changes, or we're in the process. No, I want to see the changes right now.
I think it's extremely important for students to be able to voice their opinions and to feel that they have a voice in the way the university is operated, have a voice on those things that are important to them that will make their experience here that much better, all right? And to literally demand that we actually meet some of those needs.
The start of many movements starts with a protest. We recognize that students can't stay in that place of protesting. They actually have to go to the next levels of advocacy and activism, which really we talk a lot about what that looks like in our office, in our department, on teaching people those levels, but we know that it starts a lot of times with a protest. And people, you can get people's attention with protests. And so I think that it's important. And I say, especially for our campus community, you know, when students leave our campus, they go out into the real world, if you will. But for now, this is students, this is y'all's space. You pay for this area. And if there's something that is not working for you, right, then I think that students should have their voice involved. It may not always be a protest, but student voices should always be the loudest voice. Protesting is when people feel unheard. That is the mechanism of when folks feel the least heard.
The Black student body and faculty remain vigilant to achieve social equity. They continue the fight that their forebears cultivated. Their voices will be heard.
If you have a problem, don't complain about it, do something to change it. And so my change was branching off from the Vedette and starting my own. So I started with just myself and my co-founder, which is a photographer on the Vedette too. And we started with just us, and then we found other people within the community who wanted to make a difference and use, you know, learn about photography or graphic design or reporting. And we joined them, and now it's 30 of us.
We just want to see more of everyone, not even just Black, but more Hispanics, more Asians, more everyone, you know, we just want to see more than just the majority.
No, it's got to be, there are more things that we need to do. How can we become truly an anti-racist type institution, all right, where everyone feels welcome and that they're engaged in the direction of the institution?
Everybody should proudly be an anti-racist. Anti-racism simply means, at its core, being in opposition of oppression. Racism is oppression, and any other form of oppression we are against. And so I'd say diversity is important, but diversity talks about difference, right? We're already different. We're here, right? We can talk about inclusion, but I struggle with inclusion because at some point, some bodies were excluded. And so what does it mean now for someone to say, oh, now you're included? Really what we need is to address oppression. We can't get around the history of higher education, right? We attend a historically white institution. A lot of people say predominantly white. That feels more comfortable. That more palatable. But the truth of the matter is we are a historically white institution, and most of these institutions that are predominantly white are historically white and had some exclusionary practices from the very beginning. So we, as the recipients and the inheritance of this system and these policies and this history, we have an obligation, right? Now that we know better. I'm not saying that they didn't, but we know better. We know that justice is important, and it should be the case for every single human being.
When it comes to issues of leadership development, life skills, it's about, getting to know people who are both the same as well as different than yourself, all right, and appreciating those differences, all right, and those things that make us all unique and special.
It's not my responsibility to tell anybody how to move forward in feeling better about their environment, right? Unless I can do something about it, unless there's that issue of not being safe or being threatened in your space. But beyond that, I think that there's a responsibility to co-construct what would make this person feel better? What would success look like for them in terms of feeling comfortable? And so I think that's where I would start. And then I would also say that they're not alone, that they are not the first person of color, Black student of Latin descent that has felt uncomfortable.
I think that we've taken a number of steps already in order to show that we mean business. I think the establishment and the development of a multicultural center is a great step in that direction, all right? It's not going to be the end and be all right? But it's a first step in order to make sure students feel that they have place on campus and space. That's extremely important, okay? So I think that's a first step. The work that we're doing right now with the anti-Black ISU group, in order to address the demands that they have put forth. The work that we're doing right now with the student athletes and their concerns, which some of those same concerns from those two groups, they cross over, right? They're the same concerns. So if we can address and hit and address some of the specific things that are articulated by one group, we're probably addressing those concerns for the other group as well. So I think if we can go ahead and knock those things off, check them off, all right? And not just treat them like, well, now we're done and wash our hands of it. No, it's got to be, there are more things that we need to do.
Illinois State University remains a school welcoming people of all backgrounds. But is everyone heard? Is everyone afforded the same opportunities? Why are there some redbirds who feel caged? Why do they feel they are not afforded the same luxuries as their counterparts? Race remains a persistent issue, not only at Illinois State University, but in America. The solution is simple. Listen and learn. Perhaps you'll understand why the caged bird sings.